What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports SABERSIM show. I am your host, MAGONE. We are here breaking down some PGA for you guys. Pumped to be here. And I'm back with Jordan. We did this, I think, for the last major. I don't know how long it was, maybe 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, but it was a good time. We broke a ton of stuff down, and we're going to be talking about SABERSIM here over here at Run Pure Sports. We'll talk about some of our content. We'll talk about how we're building out lineups, and we'll be screen sharing, building out a player pool for this big major that we got going on for golf this week. Let me bring in Jordan. How are you doing? And are you pumped for this week's major?
I am. I'm excited. Yeah, it feels like we were here, just a month ago talking a PGA Championship, and we're back again for the U.S. Open this week here. Really excited to get into it and start building some lineups here. We'll jump into building things out here in just a second. Before we get started, just in case there's anybody out there watching the SABERSIM show for the first time, wanted to mention one of the things that really makes SABERSIM unique when it comes to building for golf DFS is that we simulate out the tournament thousands of times, and that ultimately ends up kind of powering everything that we're doing behind the scenes here. So, you can see I've got Scott Scheffler here pulled up, and these are his full distributions for the way that we expect the tournament to play out for Scheffler here, right? We see, obviously the two peaks here kind of representing situations where he misses the cut, situations where he makes the cut, and then obviously, goes on maybe to win the tournament here. We've got data that represents how likely different outcomes are for these guys here. And when we ultimately end up going to build the lineups, this gets pulled in automatically here. So I'll get into that a little bit more as we move along, talk a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes at different steps of the way here. But I just wanted to mention that because I think, first time you hit SABERSIM, looks pretty familiar if you're used to other optimizers out there. You've got a list of names, you got salaries, you got projections, ownership, that kind of thing. But what we're doing here is really quite a bit different than a lot of the traditional tools. So I'm excited to get into it here. But yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, excited to break it all down with you. Before we kind of dive in, we talk a little bit more about SABERSIM just so that people can understand. If you're like new, maybe popping in here, let's say you're a hand builder, right? You just kind of build out teams, which is easy to do in golf, right? Just plug in 6 golfers. It's not that hard. Well, SABERSIM is a way that you can, build a team using different, pieces of analytics, right? Kind of running the tournament, like you said, the simulations. Then on top of that, you can look at ownership. You can build out your own player pool. Let's say you're getting a ton of, Jordan Spieth and you don't want him. Kick him out the pool, right? Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do. That way you're not getting him into your lineups. You could also put like a max exposure. Let's say you're getting 60% Kevin Na. Well, you can make it where you're only getting 40%. Instead of having to build all these teams by hand, you can just do it by clicking all these different buttons. It's really simple. So definitely try it out. Head on over to Run Pure Sports, sign up to get all the content that we have over there. We have tons of stuff. We got a premium show today coming up with BigT, Hoop, and Tambo. You do not want to miss out on that. We have on this channel the Strokes Gain show that was last night. That's free. On the Run Pure Bets side, if you go to Run Pure Bets and subscribe to that channel, you'll get some content from me, Snyder, Allie, Uncle T, and JJ later on. And we have all the content you can get. And if you sign up, you get the core plays from all of our coordinators. You don't want to miss out on those. They give their 3 top golfers that they're going to have in their lineups. And then you got to just fill out the other 3. You can use SABERSIM to do that, right? You can plug in Big T's core, put on like some uniques, and then just run it and find your favorite team if you'd like. There's just so many different ways that you can use the content to create those winners. I'm trying to think. We got the playbook. The playbook has all the different notes of the guys that we like. Snyder's does a great job with that. AP helps out along with that. So you don't want to miss out on all the content that we have. We also have tiers as well, where we just put our favorite guy in each tier. So tons of content over here at Run Pure Sports. You got to sign up if you haven't yet. Make sure to do that. Also, please, if you like the content here, like the channel. We really, really appreciate it. Also, subscribe if you want to get notified when we go live. But Jordan, did I miss anything else? Anything else on the SABERSIM side? Or you want to just dive in and talk about this player pool?
Yeah, I mean, one other note, and I actually think this is a good thing I want to touch on. Chris mentioned here in chat, he said, newsflash, all models sim thousands of times. And I think it's actually a good point, and I want to address that here quickly, that, there are going to be a lot of other tools out there that say, oh yeah, we simulate the event, right? We're using simulations to generate our projections or things like that. But there are no other tools out there that actually use the simulations when it comes time to build the lineups. And that's one thing that makes SABERSIM really unique. There's a lot of places out there that will say, here's our average projections. They were determined based on sims, but they'll give you an optimizer that's just going to optimize based on average projection, nothing else, and require you to use things like randomness or maybe lean really heavily on exposure settings or things like that to get lineups that actually resemble a lineup that can win. We actually pull directly from our simulation results as you are building lineups. So we'll see this here in a moment as we go along. But when you get a lineup built with SABERSIM, it is represented by an actual optimal from our simulations of the way that the event can play out. Average projections are really pretty useless in golf, right? We can see I'll pull Scheffler's results up again here, right? Even if we said, here's our 74.2, that's our average projection for Scheffler based on our sims. That doesn't mean anything, right? We can see that outcome happens only 5% of the time. It's pretty rare. What we're actually looking for is these outcomes here, right? Because we're pulling from those sims directly when it comes time to build lineups, you get way more value out of the actual individual sets of sims than the average projection there. So I wanted to touch on that because I think that's actually a really good point and something that I didn't make as clear here when we got started off. So.
Yeah, I think those are really good points that you brought up there. But yeah, let's dive into about the pool. And
let's do it.
You said before, if you guys have any, want to talk about golfers in the chat, you want to, see if we want to put them in our lineups, we can discuss them, right? Maybe you think that Colin Morikawa is a good play. You're like Snyder. You just peel to him every single week. Snyder loves to talk about his boy Morikawa. Hey, pop him in the chat. Be like, I like Morikawa this week. And we'll try and talk about these different golfers and what we're kind of looking at. And my main focus, if I had to pick one thing to focus on, right? Everyone always talks about, I want good putters. I want guys that hit long off the tee. I want accurate golfers. Like, yes, I want the best golfer in the world. I want the golfer that can do everything, but that doesn't exist. And, if you just do that, you have too many guys in your pool, in my opinion. So, let's talk about what's your favorite stat that you're looking at this week? Because my stat, Jordan, it's accuracy. That's what I'm focused on. I understand that I've heard some people say, the rough is really deep in spots and then it's not as deep in other spots. But at the end of the day, it's not just the around the green play. It looks like it's going to be a little difficult, but it's like putting is not going to be easy here too. I want the guys just getting it closest to the pin. I always typically like to lean on approach anyways. Like if I could not look at any statistics at all or just anything, and I can only pick one golf stat to have access to, it'd be approach every single week, just because I feel like that's the best thing that you can find. Jordan, what's your thoughts? What's like one of the stats that you're looking at to key in on this week? Yeah,
it's interesting. I think that's really good points. I think for me, I'm focused more I think this course is just likely to play very difficult on the whole. And when we have these kinds of events like this, where you're playing a difficult course, I think that kind of just increases the variance, period. So I'm going to zig a little bit here and take it a little bit of a direction. I think what I'm going to really focus on here this week is I'm going to be looking at guys that have upside in our simulations relative to ownership. And as we go through and kind of talk about each little individual pricing group here or add guys to our pool, I'm going to be looking for guys where maybe the ownership projections say that you can get a little bit of a discount there on that guy in that price range, but there's still a little bit of upside on that, top 5% win equity in our simulations here and build out the pool that way.
Sorry about that. I got a text that I had to respond to from a family member, but yeah, so gotcha. That's good. Let's dive in though and talk about the pool now though, because I want to dive in and really discuss the guys at the top, Jordan, because the guys at the top, man, like it's a loaded range. And another thing to mention this week too, I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. This is always a huge talking point every single week, Jordan. Whenever we have a major, I should say, every time there's a major, there's always just egregious values, right? That just like you see these guys and people say, well, you got to fade the 7K chalk, right? And we're not going to go down there yet, but like this is a talk point I definitely want to discuss a lot. I think people in the chat, I want to get your thoughts too. I think this is a great conversation point. Like, for instance, when Harold Varner III is like 25% owned at like 7.3K, on like at the RBC, whatever, any of these crappy events, the Farmers Insurance, whichever ones you want to talk about. It's different than I think Sung Jae Im at 7.6. It's different than Finau at 8.1, I think he is. Or who's the other one? I think Max Homa is another one, right? In that range at 8.1. But the difference is when you have all those guys that are going to gain so much ownership, well, if you plug in like two of those guys, well, now I have money to spend. So like there's a lot of under-owned guys that end up falling in that range as well. So that's something to think about too when you're building out your lineups. Like, for instance, if you're going to eat that chalk, if I'm going to eat a Sung Jae Im chalk, maybe I want to get a little different at the top with more of a lower-owned guy. On the flip side, let's say I'm eating some chalk at the top. Now maybe I want to go and grab a guy that's a little bit lower. And that's the beauty of SABERSIM, where it'll make sure if you're building out teams, let's say you're doing you can pick the size tournament. Let's say you're playing a tournament that's 100 people to 1,000 people, like it says in there, right? You're in one of those contests.
Yep.
You can pick single entry. It'll build you a single entry type lineup based on the ownership, based on the projections and the simulation. So these are things that I definitely want to discuss as we kind of build out our pool. And I think there's a lot to definitely discuss about that as we kind of keep going. But we'll talk about the top golfers: Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Rory, Cam Smith, and Morikawa. That's the 10K and up. And man, it's a really interesting range. And if I think about, we also have to think about recent form, right? And if we're talking about recent form, the guys that stick out who have been playing the best, it'd be like, I'd say it's Rory. Obviously, Rory's in that conversation. You can't discount Justin Thomas for how well he's been playing. Scotty Scheffler's been one of the best. And even Cam Smith has been pretty good. And then it feels like it falls off a little bit with Rahm. Rahm has not been as good. And Morikawa just feels like he's been not so great. But I know he's like, if you think about who is the best iron players in this range, my ranking would be probably JT Morikawa 1-2, right? Like that's the crazy thing. Morikawa is the guy that I'm really trying. Let's start with him, because he's going to be very low owned. And if you plug in a Morikawa, I just think your lineup's instantly going to be pretty unique. What's your thoughts on Morikawa? I kind of want to add him into the pool just because I don't think you need to get that much of him to make things to just get overweight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember last time we were talking about this, I think you said your approach, the way you like to do this, is start with everybody out of the pool, right? And then we'll add guys in here. So I'll go ahead and remove everybody.
Typically I like to do it that way. So kick them all out. And again, I saw one person last time I remember was like, I can't believe you do that. That's ridiculous. And I was like, hey, that's what works for me, right? Do what works for you. It's you. There's so many different ways you can go about it. So yeah, I typically like to do it that way. I just think it's easier for me. So yeah, let's kick them all out. And let's add Morikawa in. I think he's going to be a guy I want to put in there. What's your thoughts on him, though? Is he someone you want to make sure to get on your teams?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested. I think at the high end here, I'm always interested in any of these guys where there's this big ownership discrepancy, right? All of these guys are going to have, a similar equity here in winning the tournament. There's not, I don't think, typically a huge discrepancy at the 10K range and up of actual true upside of what you can get out of those guys. So if you're getting like 1/3 of the ownership on a guy that, maybe recent form hasn't been there as much, but clearly has flashed it at majors before, right? I'm totally in. I'll go ahead and just add Scotty Scheffler in there as well. Right. I mean, most expensive golfer in the pool here. But if we end up getting, 5% ownership on him, these are big tournaments that we're going to be playing this week here, especially if you're playing the larger field stuff. You're talking about maybe beating, 80, 90, 100,000 different lineups to take something down. I don't even know what the millie looks like this week. We need that kind of leverage to get there. And if we're getting 5% ownership on the most expensive golfer in the pool, I'm basically just in.
Okay. So actually I want to look at something. So now that you said that, I thought about Rory's the talking point, right? He's clearly been crushing 22%. I'm seeing ownership wise, and you can make an argument to fade it. You can make an argument to play it as well. I think we can definitely do it if we want to at this point, right? I think we're perfectly fine with it, but let me see. If you plug in a Rory and you plug in Scheffler, that leaves you at 7K for all your golfers. Now, if you plug in Morikawa with Rory, leaves you at 7.375. Those teams can definitely work, where I honestly think, like, if you're someone that likes to group golfers together, I wouldn't hate making sure to try to, let's say you want to lock Rory and Morikawa and just run 10 teams. I don't think it's the worst idea, because that's instantly going to make your Rory teams really unique. No one's going to really do those approaches with Rory. So that's just an idea that I kind of came up with there. What's your thoughts on Rory? Because he's another big talking point this week. Do we play him or do we fade him? My lean right now, it's kind of to play him. But the key is, if you do play him, then how many other golfers can I get in there? I probably can't get in. Maybe I can get in one more golfer at the top, but then I feel like I can't play many more. What's your kind of thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, so I think one thing you can kind of do in these situations here, and you mentioned, I agree with you. I do think ownership is going to come in a little bit higher on him. So one thing I'll mention here, let's add him to the pool here, but I'm going to bump up his ownership to maybe about 24. I do think he's going to be one of the chalkier golfers in the field this week. What you'll get out of that is, when it comes time for us to actually build lineups here, that'll help get a better result from the ownership fade slider, right? Which you mentioned here is going to automatically adjust as we're talking about different size contests here. If we see a situation where a guy looks a little under projected on ownership, I think it's a good opportunity to bump him up. And then one other thing we can do, I think, let's add him to the pool, but I'm going to set a max exposure just right from the start of, maybe say about 25%. And we're not going to get overweight on Rory, but we can add him to the field, add him to our pool and get some lineups with him in there.
Okay. You said you're putting a max of 25 on him?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one thing I want to know is if we do put the max at 25 and then we see him come in at 25%, that means like the tool likes him a lot, right?
Yes.
And then maybe we reevaluate it. So that's like, again, when you make one run, it's not like everything's done. You have until lock. We can mess with stuff. So it's a good point. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, because obviously you and I have a little bit of different processes. I think you kick guys out as you go through, and I kind of try to kick them all out. What would you do, like, for instance, with like Rom and these other guys? Like, I typically want to like leave some out. Do you think it's better to like put these guys in and then see what it does? Like, talk about your process with how you handle those guys at the top. Cause I think that's personally where I struggle. When I run the tool and I have all those guys in, I'm like, oh, well, I got like 5% ROM. And maybe that's unique enough with the way it's set up where it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess talk about that a little bit, because we definitely have different opinions on it. And I'll admit, like, I'm not saying my opinion's right, but I think it's an interesting talking point that some people that haven't used an optimizer might kind of, look at when they first start running stuff.
For sure. Yeah, no. So, and I've talked about this a lot with AP. So my approach, actually, I typically end up leaving everybody in the pool, at least to begin with. And I like to get pretty spread out on my exposures. I get a lot of exposure to different guys, just talking about the 10K range or up. If I was building my 150 here, I'd probably have a little bit of exposure to these guys, to all of these guys up here. Maybe my least favorite plays, I'd be probably coming in like half the field of whatever the field ownership looks like it's going to be there. My favorite plays, I might be getting double or triple the field. Max exposure to any one golfer, I'm probably going to have in my pool most of the time, 30-40% max. And that's kind of my approach. I like to spread out. I get a lot of diversity there. It naturally gets you onto some lower plays on a per lineup basis, but I'm not really overexposed to any one guy. That's the approach that I found that works for me here, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think this approach here of building out a pool and getting the exact guys that you want, especially if you're maybe going to, maybe focus more on playing 10, 20, 50 kind of lineups, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Agree. It's definitely, it's an interesting approach. I think one thing I wish we would have done, we've already kind of started it. I think you're smart to run everything first, right? I don't know if you did a quick first run. I don't want to mess with what we've done with so far. So that's nice to do, to just see what's happening. How many, like, for instance, like if you see like Sung JM is just popping on everything, like, I don't know, there's like more reason to think that ownership could go up and be steamed up higher than you think. Also, think about the contest you're playing. If you're playing the $15 or the $4, one of those lower contests, his ownership might be lower. If you're playing up in the higher stake stuff, let's say you're playing in like the $200 single entry, there can be a big gap sometimes. I believe Brian Harmon's ownership, one of the weeks where he was absolutely awful. In some contests, he was 22%. And then like others, and these were like not contests like the Thunderdome, right? Like I think up in the Thunderdome, it was 45%, but in like those single entry $200 GBPs, what was in there? It was like, I think it was like 37, 38%, which is a lot. So think about that when you're building out your lineups, especially in single entry stuff. Because everyone says, oh, it's a single entry contest, I'll find another spot to pivot. They always say that. So think about that when you're kind of building out your lineups. What was your overall thoughts with this top range? Who do we have in there right now so far?
We've got Scheffler, Rory, and Morikawa here. So three of the six. We are getting a lot of comments here in chat. People seem to like Cam Smith here at 10-2. What are your thoughts on him this week? You want to throw him in the pool there as well?
Okay, yeah. So I'm pulling up the so I can see your screen as well. That way I can follow along. Cam Smith is a tough one. I have not played him as much lately. He's a guy that can spur off the tee sometimes, but man, like when he's on, he's on, right? And that's like the key. His putting hasn't been as great lately, which is concerning. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Cam Smith? Are you wanting to put him in there?
I'm actually a little bit interested. I don't think we're going to get 22% or even like close to this. Actually, I think this number is a little bit off here. I think people are going to be a little bit more scared of that putter. I think it could be more like 10% on him. And if he's at that range here, I think that's a little bit more interesting. I think the names that are going to be like more popular here in this 10K range is JT, Rahm, and Rory. And I think going to any of the other names here, whether it's Scheffler, Smith, or Morikawa, I think that's a different way to play. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, I kind of like it. Like I say, let's keep Thomas and Rahm out, right?
Yeah.
Thomas just won a major. I wonder if that like affects people. I haven't even looked into this yet. Is there a big weather edge this week? I saw AP say something about it, but what's the weather edge? Like, give me the details.
It does. So tomorrow morning is supposed to be pretty calm. That's supposed to be the best weather here of the week. The afternoon getting pretty windy, gusts I think up to about 25 miles an hour, and then Friday just seems pretty windy overall. So I do think there is a little bit of a weather edge for the guys teeing off tomorrow morning, getting that Thursday morning, Friday afternoon split. I think that's an interesting angle here to play as well. The interesting thing with weather, it's always tough because you don't know how much the field's going to chase that relative to how big of an advantage it is there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I like the way, like it's 1:00 Eastern. I want to build without worrying about weather right now.
Okay.
Like,
yep.
My just thoughts is like, I want to wait until like the last second to really figure it out. Now I'm someone that stays up a little later than most, I'll probably be up till like 1:00, 2:00 my time, which Eastern, that's 3, 4. So like I just think it's better to wait with weather. I don't want to overreact to it too. And hey, the one thing to mention is if there is weather, well, what are we going to do? We're going to look and see who's on that side and decide maybe ownership wise, that could cause some issues. So definitely think about that when you're kind of building out your lineups. Let's dive into this next range because I want to talk about some golfers. Let's talk about Xander Schauffele. Dude's been crushing it, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to ignore him. I think I'm just putting him in my pool and I'm moving on. Jordan Spieth's another guy. Again, not a Jordan Spieth guy, but I think this is a good spot for him. The putting has flipped a little bit. He's one of those guys too. I've heard this is one of those courses where it could be tough around the green. And who's the guy that always just does like ridiculous stuff trying to get it to the tee? You know what I mean? He just always finds a way to be magical, just find a way to get the job done. So I think I'm going to go with Spieth. He's just been playing really good on approach too, which is something I like. So I think I'm in on him. Sal Torres is another good approach player. I want to get your thoughts on what to do with him. I mean, he's been great in majors. Hideki, another good approach player, right? Neiman's decent with his irons. Lowry has been phenomenal. Like, there's a lot of good guys in this range. If I had to pick my top 3, my current top 3 would be Xander, Spieth, and Lowry. Those are guys I just want to get in my pool without looking at ownership and any of that stuff. What's your thoughts on that? And who are some guys that you're liking in this range?
Yeah, I mean, well, one name that kind of jumps out, and again, playing the ownership angle a little bit here, talking about ball strikers, right? I mean, Victor Hovland, right here at 9,700.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Hideki.
I actually do like Hideki too. The problem, I think this 9K range is like my favorite range in the entire field here this week. When I'm going through, these are all guys that are really jumping out to me. I actually think, even just kind of coming back to the 10K range, I think I'm in a way of getting different. I'm more interested in like even maybe starting some builds here a little bit at that 9K range. There's a lot of names that jump out. I do like Hideki a lot here too. The two guys that kind of just look like, the combination of upside to perform here with the ownership that really jumped out for me were Hovland and Hideki.
Okay. Yeah. Hovland and Hideki. Man. So I definitely am struggling with Hideki because I played him in the week he got the disqualification, which others might have that struggle for sure. I'm definitely struggling with that, I will admit. And I like Hideki. It's a good spot for him too, right? Because of his accuracy. So I'm down with Hideki. I worry about Hovland and his around the green play. I'm not a huge Hovland guy. So, but let's leave him in the pool because I like this 9K range a lot, kind of like you. I don't want Cantlay. I know Cantlay's good, but he's always awful at majors. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes it's just like, it doesn't click. So,
well, he always feels chalky too. That's the other thing is it never really feels like you're getting an ownership discount there. And then it's like, what's the point? What am I even getting out of this guy here in this range? So
correct. And I'm not like dying to play DJ right now. Also, another thing to like talk about too, that we haven't mentioned, these live guys like that travel. I'm not saying it's going to matter a ton, but it could have a little bit of an effect. You never know. And jet lag could matter. I know you get it. They're flying like perfect on the jets and everything like that. It could be fine, but you never know. They were at an event and some of these guys have been here grinding instead, right? They weren't at the RBC. Some guys were actually here working on that. Dustin Johnson clearly had to go to that live event. He couldn't not. So worth mentioning a little bit here. So let's talk about, I think this is a good set. I think let's put all these guys in the pool. Doesn't mean we're going to play them all. Maybe some of them just don't pop up, right? That could easily be the case, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And one other thing to mention too, I think if you're building out a pool like this and you're ever unsure on a guy, you might as well throw him in because you always get the opportunity with SABERSIM to make some adjustments after the lineups have been built. So yeah, I think let's rock with this and keep it going.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can always make these adjustments afterwards. Like for instance, sometimes I run stuff and I'm like, well, this is one of my favorite golfers in the event, and I don't have enough of him. They only gave me 15%. I want it to be at 40%. So you can make it a min of 40, or you can just bump the projection up and see what it does, which is definitely a good approach to take. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next range. And I lost my space. Oh, here we go. Here. So I'm looking at it with you. Neiman, Cam Young. Cam Young's been phenomenal. I wonder if people are going to be worried to pay that price tag of 8.8. That's something I'm curious about. Brooks Koepka. Man, Brooks is one of those guys that, like, he's supposed to be a major guy. And I don't know if you saw that interview with him too. I wonder what people think, but he seemed a little agitated. I don't know how his like mental space is going to be, but he did just get married too. Maybe the marriage bump helps, of course. But the key is, what is his ownership going to be, right? I think that's the most important talking point. Everyone loves a fun narrative. I like a good narrative, but Brooks, I think his ownership is going to be really low, where if I told you, let's say I told you 4 months ago, Jordan, you could play Brooks Koepka at 8.7, or you can play Cam Young at 8.8 or Billy Horschel at 8.6. You'd be like, okay, you're a moron to not play Brooks. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, no. And you know, what's weird is I'm not hearing that same like Brooks at a major narrative this week. I don't know. I think he missed the cut at the PGA Championship, right? Like, I think maybe recency bias there has just all of a sudden got people off of it. Like, I'm not a big narrative guy in general with this kind of thing, but now just purely from an ownership stance, I think it becomes a little bit interesting just because I don't know. I'm not hearing his name a lot this week, and I think people are going to be kind of off of him.
Well, Jordan, you don't like fun if you don't like a good narrative. I'm not saying you have to jam in your lineups, but we sit here and grind these numbers all day long. At least add a little fun to your life.
I know. No, I'm a bit of a nit with the analytics sometimes. So it's good for me to come on here and talk a little bit of narratives and think about it from this way. I say we throw them in.
Yeah, and I say we throw them in. I mainly think you throw them in because of the ownership. That's really the main reason, I think. And another reason, and this is like another good talking point that I like to discuss when kind of building out lineups, but like, talk about this low range, right? People are going to be on Max Homa. They're going to be on Finau, and they're going to be on Sam Burns. A lot of ownership is going to be there on Burns, Finau, and Homa. I'm not saying we're not playing them, but because of that high 8K range, it's going to just naturally, you're going to have lower ownership on those guys, where if you built out a team and you said, give me Brooks and give me Cam Young, that's instantly unique. And you can even play Burns with it, or a Finau or a Homa, but instantly that's going to make you different, in my opinion. So, but I do want to talk about Burns, Homa, and Finau, because there are 3 important golfers to discuss this week. I really like Finau. I think Finau is in a really good spot. He's been playing some really good golf. I agree on Homa, and I even think Burns, like, it's hard to ignore these guys. How do you get different with it, Jordan? Do we make I don't know if Saber, I know Saber has rules for some stuff. Do we have the rules yet here for the golf that we can like separate the guys, or what are some ways that you make your teams unique? Or is Saber just going to run it? Because if you do 150 lineups, right? And I believe this will work. If you run 150 lineups and you have Homa in the pool, you have Finau, and you have Sam Burns, you're not going to get all 3 on the team if you're running 150 for like really large tournaments, because Saber is going to run the simulations. They're going to run the ownership, and they're going to say these 3 guys can't be on the same team because they have so much ownership, correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, the ownership fade sliders is going to help a ton with that already. I do think, this is a decent opportunity to make a group because I'm in the same boat here. I'm looking at these guys. I'm looking at this entire range, and I think it's a dangerous range. I think there's a lot of chalky names here. I also think you're going to have very chalky constructions here, right? If basically the entire range from like Homa at 81 to Fitzpatrick at 85, these guys are all, 15% plus owned, which I do think Homa is probably going to be. You're not only talking about individual golfers at that point that are going to be chalky, it's going to lead you in a direction of building a lineup construction that's also pretty chalky. So I like the idea here of building a rule out. So you said Burns, Finau, and Homa. We can put them in and then create a quick group here and basically say, let's go find those guys and say Homa, Finau, and Burns.
All right.
And go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Well, I was going to ask, do we put Sung J M in there too? You know why? I mean, it's just, he's going to be, it's worth asking.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, there's a little bit of like a pricing difference there. Okay. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. Right. Let's throw them in there as well. And because I do think those are going to be popular plays here. So, we need to get really different in tournaments that are as big as this week here. So let's go ahead and throw them in there.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about like we are going to run a single entry team later on and stuff, but like we're talking about trying to ship the millie, right? I mean, that's why people are here. That's why people are trying to play golf this week. They're sweating that out. So we're making it 1 or we're making it 2? What's your thoughts on the number?
I say go big or go home on this and just say max one of these guys.
So I like that idea. And then here's the thing. If we don't like it, we can go back and change it to 2. I think that's a good way to look at it. So let's go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it.
All right. Cool. And here's the other thing. Now that we did this too, we might have to add more guys to the pool just because of this. We'll obviously look at it when we run the lineups and everything. What are some other 8K guys you want to plug in? Let me look at the chat and see if they've discussed anyone that we can get in there. Let's see. No one's talked about too many 8K guys yet. So if you have any you want to plug in there, let us know. If you guys could, please like and subscribe to this video. It helps us out a ton. We appreciate it over here at Run Pure Sports, and you can get notified when our shows go live. But who are the other guys you want to plug in here? Like, are you interested in a Neiman, a Young? Lots of guys to like in this range. Fitzpatrick. Who are some of the guys you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of think, we just X out Fitzpatrick. I think, he's always chalky. I think 25% ownership seems about right. I think people are going to look at this and think he looks a little underpriced here again at this range. Just feels like a very easy guy to uncheck. I'm interested in any of these top 4 names here. That seems like the way to get different here in that range. From Neiman to Billy Horschel. I don't know. Anybody else you want to add from that range? I'm kind of inclined maybe to just throw all 4 of these guys in here just because I think it is a way to play a little bit more contrarian.
I was going to say the same thing. Let's put him in there. Doesn't mean we're going to get a lot of exposure to him anyways. Let's put him in, see what happens. And of course, if I see Daniel Berger at 60% out of nowhere, I'm going to adjust it. I'm not going to just leave it. At least for me, I know you might, but I definitely am going to mess with it a little bit. But hey, it'll be interesting to look at. So I'd plug them all in. Are you putting Berger in too or no?
Yeah, let's toss him in. We might as well.
Okay, yeah, he's not one I love. Actually, can we like bump his projection? Is it already down? Bump it down a little. I want to bump it like lower than the guys like in that like Neiman Young, just because I don't want him to pop too much more over those guys, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we got him a little bit lower than everybody else in that range. So
cool. All right, let's go to this 7K range. And I guess let's talk about the Sungjae Im range, right? Sungjae and above. That's kind of worth looking at.
Yep.
So yeah, or we can also add in the guys below, right? Because I want to talk about Answer and Louis. I really like Answer in this spot. I like iron players. I definitely am a guy that plays Answer a lot more than others. And at that price of 7.6, he doesn't have to win, right? Like perfect opportunities here for him. I like Answer a ton. Ownership is going to be down too, so I'm definitely on him. I like Louis a lot too. Again, this is not Louis Oosthuizen at 8.8K. This is Louis Oosthuizen at 7.6. Like, I think he's a really good play. I don't even hate starting your lineups with both those guys. If you started with both those guys, I feel like you're building a pretty nice lineup where at that point, you're not going to be slamming in all these guys we talked about. Like if you played Answer Oosthuizen, you probably only need one more of those like low 8K guys, and it's going to build you that like unique team that we're kind of talking about. So that's something to look at when we do like our single entry stuff. Maybe what we'll do is we'll run single entry stuff. Then maybe we'll run a locking both of them to see what they do, because I'm very intrigued by that. Talking about Mito, because we want iron guys, right? Well, he's one of the better iron players in the world. We've seen him compete at a major. We've seen him bounce back and not just be in shambles. So what's your thoughts on a guy like Mito? He's someone I definitely think I want to get into the pool.
Yeah, I like that idea here. Again, one of the things that I'll start to do, and you mentioned it here, as we start to talk about some of these guys, you don't need as much win equity here. I'll pull over this top 10 column and start looking here from that standpoint. And I think he's an interesting guy here. Again, a lot of times I start to play a little bit more of an ownership angle as we get further and further down the salary range. Yeah. So I like that approach here. I mean, on Louis, do you think, do you have a sense of ownership here this week? We're actually projecting him to be pretty chalky down here. What are your thoughts here? Do you think he's going to be a chalkier guy at this range?
Well, here's the thing. Like, between one of those guys is not going to be a zone, right? Between Sungjae, Answer, and Louis. When I first looked, I knew like that was like a popular range. I knew Im would be like popular. And I thought maybe one of the other guys could gain ownership. But part of me thought, well, you got Mito at 7.8. You got all these other guys in like that 8K range. I don't know if I'm completely buying it. Also, like, when we talk about chalkiness on golfers, like, this isn't like trying to think of the best way to word it. It's not going to be like a 30% guy, right?
Right.
I don't think it's getting above 20. So I'm not worried about it as much. I really don't see it happening like that. I just think both those guys, because you have I think the guys that people are going to gravitate towards, Sungjae, Max Homa, who hasn't disappointed them in forever, Finau, who everyone just loves to play low, Finau at that ownership at times. And then who was the other one up there? Oh, Sam Burns, who's been crushing it too. Again, I'm not worried about those two ownerships. I think between Answer and Louis, I'm just cool with it. I'm plugging my pool and I'm going to want 20% of each, basically, is what I'm looking at least, for sure. Like I want to at least get like 15% on Answer or more. Wouldn't mind getting to 20. And when we run stuff, if Louis comes in at 20, I'm fine with it. I'm not saying I have to move it up to 40 or anything like that, but let's just see what the optimizer does for us. And I believe it's going to give a lot of him based on his projection in the opto.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to get quite a bit of these guys. And we can even bump, I think, one thing just to make sure that we're getting some Answer here, especially if we want him, is bumping his projection a little bit actually up, just so he's comparable here to Im and Louis in this range.
Cool. I like that. I don't like anyone else like up above. Like I'm not big on Aaron Wise. I'm not big on Fleetwood, Hatton or Bryson. Oh, I wanted Connors. That's the one guy you don't have in there. I want ball strikers, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like a good spot for Connors, where not saying he's going to get lost in the shuffle completely, but if he wasn't in this range and he was just a little bit lower, or maybe Sungjae Im was up more, and then let's say Connors was 7.6 and Sungjae Im was like 8K or 7.9, like Connors could gain a lot more of that ownership. So I like Connors here. I want to have him in my pool for sure. Let's scroll down though. Who are some other guys you like, unless you want to add Wise or Fleetwood? Who are some of the 7.5 to 7K guys you're interested in?
Yeah, this is where it gets tough. Again, a lot of times, like as I'll go through this, I'll start just kind of playing an ownership type angle here, avoiding guys that I think are going to be a little bit more popular. I don't know. I think this I think this range looks pretty good. Again, my approach here, I'd probably be putting more of these guys in than not, and just seeing how it shakes out at the end. Are there any other names that really jump out to you that are interesting here?
No, so this is fair because I've noticed when I've built out my pool, sometimes I need to I think I need to add a little bit more guys, just because I feel like I've had good teams some weeks. And then I noticed when I'm trying to still figure out what range of golfers I want to play. I know that I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, because I know BigT and even JSU, they go really aggressive with their pools. I've noticed when I've gone aggressive, some weeks I've nailed ranges, and then I haven't nailed ranges, and it's really burned me. And sometimes it's been this lower range, this lower 7K range, where I feel like I need to mix and match just a couple more guys. It doesn't have to be my pool range should go from 30 to maybe 38, where it's not that much more. So let me kind of give you full reign here, just because I think this is where I've had some struggles recently. Who are we peppering here? How many guys you want to add in? You tell me, what are we doing from the 7K to 7.5? Who do you want to add in here?
Okay. So, I mean, if you gave me full range, what I would actually do here instead is I would probably end up putting the whole range in, and maybe specifically look for any guys I wanted to actually get off of. And for me, that would mostly be, more on an ownership side of thing, but I'm okay at this range here, not necessarily having a take on every single one of these guys, letting some of the projections and the sims kind of make some decisions for me and just seeing how it shakes out. I might seriously be coming in here, adding all of these guys back in, maybe removing a couple that you want to be careful of that you don't like, but just seeing what we get on the other side. Okay,
let's do that. So did you add them all in?
I added them all in.
Okay. You just added in the 7K? It went so fast on my screen. I'm assuming you did it in a fast way. So that's
I did do it in a fast way. Yeah. So, I mean, a good little SABERSIM tip there. If you ever want to add a bunch of people at once, I'll do it again here real quick. Actually.
Yeah, this is helpful because I've never seen that. So I was
curious. Actually, I don't think I can bulk remove them that quickly, but here, we'll just do it from Norin to list, right? So let's say we want to add in all of these guys. We can just shift and then click list here. Okay. And it'll grab everybody in between those two.
All right, that's helpful. I did not know that, and that actually helps me out. So make sure to add Sungjae in back in.
Yeah.
Any guys you want to kick out from this range? That I'll say this: I really like Davis Riley. What is his ownership? I'm scared to look. I still haven't looked at that yet because I think he's the guy that people are going to gravitate towards.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think this seems a little bit low. I think maybe coming up here to 9 or 10. At this point, I don't think you always get those guys that are super chalky compared to other guys in this range. I think you can kind of do what you want here. If there was, occasionally we get the week where there is the guy that's 15, 20% owned in the low sevens, but I don't really think this is that week here.
That's encouraging, by the way. I was thinking he was going to be kind of owned this week. he was someone I was like, man, like that 7-5 and below, you know who sticks out to me? Davis Riley. Like that just sticks out for me, at least for me. I don't know about you. Did that kind of stick out when you looked at it?
Yeah, I mean, well, especially because he's been playing well, right? And I mean, young guy that like looks like this is kind of his emergence here on the PGA Tour. That I mean, and maybe people chase that a little bit here as well, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be. I would be stunned if he was over 10%.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: if you played a team this week, Jordan, that was Abe Answer, Louis Oosthuizen, and Davis Riley, you're not like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna grab one of those 8K guys, maybe, and then 2 guys up top. Like that again is like a team that I like, that I think is really interesting, and it's a good team. It's not bad at all. So I think that's intriguing. That's just me like kind of thinking through like, some of my thoughts of things for like a single entry contest. When we run stuff, I'm kind of curious to look at if any of that pops. So yeah, well, let's look at the 6K range though, because I do think there's a significant drop off. I'm not saying that you shouldn't play these guys here, but I'm not in love with this range. What's your kind of thoughts here on how you want to handle the 6K guys?
Yeah. Again, I mean, you're talking about guys here that, what you're really, I mean, if you're building a construction out of these guys, especially in a really tough course, like I guess you're hoping for them to make the cut, basically. I might be, there'd be a few ways I would handle this. One would just be, add them into the pool and maybe set a rule to avoid having like more than one of these guys showing up. Another thing that I'll do here is just, again, take advantage of the sim data and maybe go through and add a few guys in that I think, have even odds or better of making the cut and just let them be some salary relief for some different lineups. When we're getting down to this range, there's not often a name or any guys that like really jump out to me that, I think, wow, I got to have that guy, or I want 20% or 30% of that guy or something like that. So I don't know. It's up to you what we really want to do here. I think in general, what I see people do a lot with this 6K range that I think makes some sense is to just throw them in and maybe add some kind of rule to protect against getting too many of them in one lineup.
So that when you were talking, that's the thing I like the most. Let's do that. Let's add that rule. But then again, when we run it, we can kick guys out. Like there might be something I'm like, okay, I'm not comfortable playing him. So let's do that. I think that's a good approach. Let's do what you said. Let's put that rule in as well, and then run it and see what it does and see how many golfers it gets us. Because again, I don't know about you. I don't know if I want, like, there's some guys in the industry, they like getting 70, 60. I think you're more in that camp, but let's see, maybe it'll get us more. Maybe it's something we want to work with more. I also don't normally run 150 lineups. I normally run like 50 or something like that. I don't feel like I have to run 150 typically when I do my stuff, but do you want to run 150 here? I'm down to do that. I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, let's do it. I think that'd be fun. And one thing I'll add, and it will take a minute for the build to run here, but one thing I'll add that I like to do, I'll increase this pool size up to 1,500 here. It's just going to give us more lineups in the pool to work with here when it comes time to actually build the lineups.
I think you should fix the min salary too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. Where do you want it?
Because like sometimes like I don't want to have like teams that leave like 47, like 4,700, 200. Like I don't want to do that. It's a major, so let's go to 488. Like I'm okay with leaving 1,200. I think that's okay. So yeah, let's do that. I think that's the best way. Do you do any uniques or no? What's your thoughts on that? Or you let it run itself?
I typically don't. I mean, again, so like for 150, and honestly, like we'd probably actually even be more like this area if we're building for this week here. Let me fix that reset things. We're going to be so unique anyway with the sim precision being all the way to 10, right? We're using basically what's actually happening here is we're going to take one simulation of the tournament and then build the best possible lineup around that. I don't think we even need any min uniques here to get different.
Cool. I'm in. That works. Let's run it and see what happens. While we're doing that, guys, if you could please like and subscribe to this video, helps us out a ton. We appreciate it. DC asks, is there any way to change SABERSIM ownership? Well, you can upload your own ownership, or just like you did before, you went on to Davis Riley and you changed his ownership, right, Jordan? And there's very simple ways to do this if you don't agree with the ownership, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, we can pull that back up before the end of the show here and do it again, just so you can see. I do think golf in particular, is one of the best situations to make those adjustments, just because guys, they can pick up a lot of steam. They can get a little bit more chalky than expected based on some of these narratives, based on recent form or different things like that. our ownership model, the ownership projections up there are like entirely based on an algorithm. It's like a computer driven approach. So it's very sharp at picking up on pricing inefficiencies and things like that, but it'll miss some of those more kind of human elements of narratives and things like that. So if you see a guy and you're like, man, that just really doesn't look right to me, definitely a good spot to make an adjustment.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. So, all right, is it ran? Let's see.
It is, yeah.
All right, so now before we make any changes, let's just discuss what we see and what we like. Number one, the first thing I notice is Scotty Scheffler is our highest owned golfer at 52%, and then the next ownership is at 23. So my initial thoughts are, I want to make sure that gets flattened out a bit. The dude is 4% owned. We don't need to be overweight by, I don't even know how much it is. I'm trying to do the math in my head, but it's a ton, right? That's ridiculous. We don't need to be that high. So what would your adjustment be? My adjustment would be like maybe making it at like max of like 12 or 15%. Is that right? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And actually, since you mentioned it, you don't even have to do that calculation yourself. This leverage column is that calculation. So this column here will do your exposure minus the ownership. So we have 49.1 percentage points of exposure more than the field does. I think that's crazy. I don't think we need that much either. I like the idea of bringing that down to like 15 here. And we can see all of a sudden gets a little bit more flat at the top end range here.
And that's exactly what I wanted. Like I want more of those golfers. So I think that's important. Okay. So
how do you normally like to do this? So I normally do this a couple ways. Like I think my favorite way for golf in particular is to do it go by salary ranges again and kind of see how everything shook out as we were, going through each different range here.
That's a good idea. I never actually do it that way. So I kind of like this.
Okay.
All right. So, and also keep in mind when you do go through it this way, you might have to go back and see what it has affected in other ranges afterwards. So,
yes.
All right. So I don't mind the way it is at the top. Like it seems strong. I think you could Hovland's. I wouldn't mind lowering that way. I think it could I think help give us a little bit more leverage in other positions. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So I wouldn't mind you moved him down. Okay, perfect.
Yep. Yeah. And real quick, I'll just mention too, again, for anybody that's maybe watching here for the first time, hasn't seen this before, right? So what's actually happening here? So we're building 150, right? Maybe we're building out, our pool for 150 max. We built 1,500 lineups and I'm just going through, we're changing our max exposure. And then as we go through this, SABERSIM is putting in new lineups from our 1,500 into our 150 that fit this, right? And I think this can just be a really cool tool. This is what we were talking about before, right? You don't need to get everything perfect before you build, right? We liked Hovland. We wanted to get a little bit of leverage there. We don't need 30% of whatever we were getting. We can just set them at 15 and here, I'll just show you again, right? So you can see how it kind of shakes out through the rest of the range, right? Like look how these exposures change when I put Hovland at 15, right? We get a little bit more Xander. We get a little bit more Spieth. We actually get up to a little bit more Morikawa and stuff like this in this range too. So just really cool. If you want to mess around with exposures, you can do this for a long time until you're happy with how it's working. So.
All right. Well, I like the way it looks up here. I think. Is there anything that sticks out to you that we can change, or are you good to go?
No, yeah, I think I'm good to go. A lot of times I'll specifically look at this leverage column, and I just want to make sure that there's not like any crazy big outliers here. So looks good.
Dave, what are we doing with Sal Torres with the minus 3.6? Are we moving it up, or are we just Xing him now completely? But I don't think we need to. It's also, I'm okay with sometimes being like, I like this golfer, but I like others more, and this guy won't burn me. And as long as my pool's not too many guys, I'm cool to leave it at that. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I always said, we don't need to be over or under on every single guy in the field. And I think that was a guy we were kind of in between on there. So I'm fine. We can see, I probably about even with the field with Sal Torres here.
Yeah. And if we go back and look and we're like, okay, I don't like having as many golfers I have, or I want to make a change at a guy at the top. It's the easiest to make the cut. We'll go back and do Sal Torres. So I'm fine with that. Hideki, I think we're pretty high on him right now. I think we could lower it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think going to 15 is cool. Are you down with that? Max of 15?
Yep. I'm good with that.
Okay. Lowry looks good. I mean, I like the way a lot of this range is shaking out. Do we want to get a little more overweight on the, on Brooks, Horschel, Young, or no? What are my thoughts here?
I kind of do. I was kind of just thinking about experimenting with like 12% min on each of these guys and just seeing just how the rest of it all shakes out. Again, I just think it's going to be a really unpopular range. I think it's a really easy way to get pretty different here this week.
Agreed. Now, another thing to note is if we are playing Finau and Burns and Homa, which again, I I know that there's going to be differencing opinions. Like if you listen to Big T and Hoop, what they're going to say is they're going to say, if I'm playing Finau, I want to be like, if he's going to be whatever he is, 18%, I want 36% or 40%. I do think you can make the argument sometimes that like our Finau Burns teams are going to be very unique alone, right? So like, I'm okay with like being where I'm at with them. Maybe that's a wrong thought process. I don't know, because again, I'm not saying I'm like, amazing at 150 max with it. I think we want to get more of them, but if we do try and get more of them, I think it's going to shake some stuff up too much. What's your thoughts? I think we try to get more of them and see what happens with our teams.
Yeah. I mean, let's look. So, I mean, at least we could try to do maybe 15% each of these guys. All of a sudden we're getting like, we're probably going to end up forcing a little bit more of a balanced strategy into our lineups. If we're going 12, 12, 12 here, and then 15, 15, 15 on these guys. I mean, it worked. We were able to get lineups here that do it. I'm fine with that. I also, again, to me, this is like the trap of the week here with this range. I would also be okay. I will probably end up coming in under on a lot of these guys here in this range, but I'm fine with leaving it there for now and seeing how the rest of it comes together.
Okay. Well, so I like doing this again. We're not like taking this CSV and, putting it in. We're just doing it for the show and trying to check it all out and try to iron out our own process for later. Scroll up and see what it did to the top end range, because it may have decimated some of the stuff we did before. Anything stick out to you that changed too much for your liking?
I don't think so. It all looks still pretty good here. Yeah,
I'm okay with it. Like it didn't decimate anything for me yet, where I'm cool with it. Another thing too, if we did see this and we were like, okay, we don't love where it's at, you could move Hovland down. I'm not saying not Hovland. You could move Xander or Hovland. That would be the ones I would kick first. I'm not saying we do that, but that would be what I would do if I thought that I needed to do that. If I do agree or disagree.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, another thing you can do here too, like, so I know you had mentioned Morikawa, right? So he's at 15%, right? We're a little over the field on him right now. One thing you can just do is just set him at a min of 15, right?
Yes.
And then we just know no matter what we do as we go down the range here, we're always going to have at least 15% of Morikawa.
But now, I think we want to put it back to 0 because now it's messed up other things. So I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But yes, I like that idea. That's a good thing that if you want to tell people, I think that's a good note that I don't think I didn't think about there. That is important. Let's go to that 7K range now. I want to talk about that and see what happens. So actually go back up to what was Connors. I didn't see. Let's see if and Mito. Okay, they're good. I want more Connors, I think. I think we got to change that.
15%.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
And we'll see what it did to other golfers later on. But let's finish up the 7K range and really see what happened in the 6K. So Sungjae, man, like what do we got? We only have, I mean, at that point I'm Xing Sungjae. What about you?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Again, like going to be I don't buy 11% owned. Like I think it might be 20% owned. So
I think it could get to 25, as crazy as it sounds. I think maybe Louis affects it a little bit, but I really think that's way more flipped. I don't think Louis 26.
I agree.
Okay, cool. So we're going to you got Louis only at 6% here.
And I think part of that is, we have a pretty high ownership fade here. And since it ran at 27% owned, I think it's kind of fading him. I think if this is a guy that we want to take a stand on, so you mentioned Abe Answer and Louis here. I think we should plant a flag on both of these guys and just get some exposure here, and do something like that. Especially since we weren't very opinionated about the rest of the 7K range. We might as well do something here. I mean, I'm fine if you typically go a little bit more aggressive than this too, than 20%. I'm fine going higher than that. But I do think we should flag plant here.
Can we do this? Can we kick Munoz out? Like if he's going to be like 10%, like at a major, I don't need Munoz. It's fine. Like I'm cool with getting rid of him. And maybe that adjusts some things. What's your thoughts on Keegan? Keegan's one too. I never know what to do. Little narrative for you. I did the quick. I figured I could find something for you, Jordan, because we were talking about narratives.
Yeah.
He's a Massachusetts guy, right? So I don't know if that does anything for you, but I thought that was funny that I found that one for you.
It does. I think I need to loosen up a little bit and maybe play into some of these here this week. So I say let's keep them in. That sounds good enough to me.
Yeah, I figure we got
a hometown narrative there. That works.
I'm not typically a Keegan guy. I'll say this. Can we change it to like, I don't need to be, actually he's fine. He's only 3.4. So that's good. I thought he was 3% and then we had 9. I was like, I only need to be double. I don't need to be like triple, but that's perfectly fine. Anything else stick out to you here that you want to change? Will Sergio be, here's another narrative for you, Jeremy. Will Sergio be so tilted that he's back on the PGA Tour rather than the Live Tour? He hates playing on the PGA Tour. He was sick of being there, but I think that's just a joke there. Nothing crazy. I think we keep Sergio in there for sure because he's a really good, accurate golfer. And hey, if it's a week that people can't putt, Sergio putts with his eyes closed sometimes. So he'll be fine. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, and on these live golfers too. I mean, I think on one hand, maybe they don't want to be back here playing the PGA Tour. On the other, maybe they're pissed off and they want to show up. So good reason on either side. I mean, one name that jumped out, you mentioned Davis Riley before,
yes.
A guy we wanted to get over on. I think maybe we set a min exposure there and make sure we're getting to some Riley lineups.
Yeah, my min was 10 too. That was what came into my head when you first said it. So let's min 10 it. I'm cool with that. Sweet. Anything else you want to change now here with it, or
no? And my exposures will typically kind of look something like this, especially as we get down to this range. Like I'll be pretty spread out. I'm fine getting to a lot of different names here. It's pretty easy to get exposure to a lot of these guys, so I'm good with it.
Okay. Now so my only concern here is, do we have 91 golfers in the pool right now, Jordan?
Yes, we do.
That is so many. I mean, that's for me. That's not. But I mean, I know you're a little different. That's a lot for me too. So I personally would not be signing off on 91 golfers. I'd be finding ways to kick guys out. But
yeah,
why does it have 91? Are the 6K guys loaded up? Are we loaded up on 6K golfers? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot of like random exposure to some 6K guys to build the pool out. Again, I mean, because we set that rule, we're never going to have more than one in a lineup, but we're getting down here, getting to some weird names here. I mean, one thing we can do here that I'll do is a little bit of a cleanup. And this is cool. So I want to mention what I'm doing here. So you can add any column from any of the data that you have in the projections tab to this screen here by clicking this button. So what I'll do, and this is, I think, just a simple way to clean up a little bit, is I'm going to add the made cut percent from our sims here. And if we've got any guys that so we're getting like exposure to some of these, like, I mean, these might be, amateurs that may won a qualifying event or something like that, 18% chance to make the cut, right? Let's get rid of some of these names here. And maybe we should have done this to begin with.
I like this. I never knew about this. So you're teaching me something here that I think is really cool. And if this helps clean some stuff up, again, I would rather clean it up. I'm a little uncomfortable with it. So I want this cleaned up a bit.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, we built these lineups here with that ownership fade slider at like 4 or 5, whatever the default was for this. I mean, it's going to do SaberSim's going to be like, okay, you want to fade some ownership. Like, let's get some of these guys in here. I just don't know if I'm buying it here this week. I don't know if we need to get this different, especially, like you can get kind of different in the 10K range. So we don't need to get that different in the 6K range. I don't think.
No, I don't like these guys. Like, I don't know what Aikido Nakajimi is, but get him out of there.
Somebody actually said his name in YouTube chat earlier. So maybe, actually just for fun, let's leave right. just him in there. Or actually, hold on.
We'll do it for the YouTube guys. We'll
do it for the,
there for you. But I definitely want to so here's a question for you. Cause again, I think we both have different approaches. How many golfers do you normally have in your pool?
It depends on the week. I don't typically have I don't have like a rule of thumb where I typically stay right there. It really depends on the week. I would say I don't know. I wish I had a number for you. I don't look at it, to be honest. I guess that's the best answer. Whatever makes sense for me that week. I would not be playing a bunch of these guys down here though. I think actually probably what makes more sense is if we were really doing this, and I know we're coming up on time a little bit here. Yeah. I think it would actually make sense to go back to the beginning and X these guys out and start with a fresh build and kind of walk through the process again.
Okay. Well, here, let's do this. One last thing, and then we're going to have to get on out of here. Guys, if you could please like and subscribe to this video, helps out a ton. Go back to the beginning. And all I want to do is I want to do the single entry run real quick. I just want to see what pops up. I think the best idea is I want to make sure, or we already kind of bumped up some of those other guys. I guess let's do this. Let's lock Louis and answer. Cause I kind of think that's a really interesting way to approach it. Cause that's something I just want to see how it works out. And I want to see what kind of exposure we get to these other guys. So let's lock both of them and then run single entry builds and see what it does. I'm very curious to see is it going to give us maybe unique guys at the top. Maybe it's only going to give us, maybe it's going to try and give us a Sung JM still or one of those other mid-tier guys. I'm curious to see what it looks like. So let's run that and then kind of see what it kind of does for our teams. And we don't have to make the pool sizes big, right? Obviously.
We'll do like 100 here. And let's bring this back up.
Make it 10 lineups, not one lineup. That way I can see more. I want to do like a quick scroll through to see kind of what we get there.
Yeah. Let's take a look. Let's see what we get here.
And I think After that, we'll definitely get on out of here because we're definitely getting short on time. But I did want to do one of these runs just because I'm curious to see what it kind of puts out. And I'm sure I saw some single entry stuff in the chat, so maybe they'll like looking at that. So when you run it, our top guy's Hovland, right? We're still getting a mix of some of these higher guys. And then the key guys, Burns is at 30%. So I'm looking at the lineup to see which one's my favorite, maybe. Let's see. So I don't love Hadwin. So he's like, typically when I look at these, I kind of see what guys. Oh, perfect. This is a great way to look at it.
Yep.
I like to see what are the teams that like has 6 guys that like I all for sure like. Obviously, sometimes you just kick them out of the pool. That way you can do it. But you know which one sticks out right away? The one that number 4. Go to that one. I think that right now is like a really intriguing one that I don't mind. And then
that's a really cool lineup. I mean, again, no guy over 10K, and then also nobody under 76. Like this super balanced build. I think it's pretty interesting for this week here.
Okay, and I don't mind the what's another one there? I don't mind you can scroll down one more because I think there's one more team that's like at the bottom there. Yeah, so another thing I'll look at sometimes too, like that team that's got KH Lee with Rory and like Burns Berger, the 9th one, right? Number 9.
Mm-hmm.
That team I don't mind, but what I would personally do there on that team, I would probably find a way to like change, like, I think I would change because I don't love KH Lee personally. I guess he's one of those lower run guys in the pool. I'd maybe look to see who's like a guy that's in that like 5% range that I can upgrade. And then maybe I'd move like Berger because I like the Burns. Like I like the idea of Burns, Rory, Louis, and then Answer. And then I might like look at what's the slight change I can make to find like another 5% guy, whether it's maybe the 5% guy is going from Berger to Brooks, right?
Yep.
And then adding in like, this is what I would do. I would change KH Lee to Davis Riley because I talked about liking Riley a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would give me, he's 7,300. That would give me $300 more to work with. And then I would change Berger to Brooks and then we're done because he's 8-7. That's something I would do. Those are sometimes things that I look at when I do single entry lineups and I'll just run it and I'll be like, listen, I'm not making that big of a drastic change off of my team, but it's giving me a really interesting construction. And I'm also sticking to the same parameters, right? KH Lee is still only 3.9%. Davis Riley is in that 5% range.
Yep.
And then I'm changing Berger to Brooks, which that's helping you ownership wise too. So what do you think of that? Because sometimes that's a way that I build out my single entry teams.
I love that for single entry for the smaller field stuff when you kind of have time to look at each individual lineup like that. I will say, maybe just to build some excitement here, that is actually what we are working on building right now, is a way to do that right here. Take this guy out, put that guy in, take this guy out, put that guy in, all in the app. That is in progress at the moment at SABERSIM. So we're all pretty excited about building that and putting that out to the app.
Awesome. Well, I love that. Great doing the show with you again, Jordan. We'll have to do it again for the next major. A lot of fun. Really talk through the process with you. And hey, we kind of came full circle. You mentioned some of the stuff that's happening with SABERSIM soon that you should be looking out for. If you haven't signed up yet at Run Pure Sports, go sign up now. You do not want to miss out on all this stuff that we have over here. And also get in on SABERSIM with the add-on. It helps you build better lineups, helps you learn and become a better DFS player. But that is going to wrap it up for us. Hit that like button out the door. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of this content. We are going to get on out of here. For me, MAGONE, and Jordan, we will see you guys next time.